Is the American dream a nightmare? The dysfunctionality of American dream is exposed by Shahid Bolsen. The truth is that some people are either intelligent, schooled to a higher standard, or are simply gifted with plenty of wisdom. Bolsen is one of those people who are able to convey a message to all with ease of understanding. Hello everyone. A big thank you to all the subscribers. I appreciate every one of you. Anyone watching and is not subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. You will be supporting me channel. Also hit the bell, so that you are notified every time a video is published. Thank you always. Let us continue. I am qualified to say that Shahid Bolsen absolutely nails it. Not only here, but in all his speeches pertaining to American society and influence. This chap verbalizes what is going in my mind and long-held inner thoughts on all these issues. He also offers Americans an out than most critics who criticize the life and routine in America, but continuously make the mistakes of not offering solutions. Bolsen always offers solutions. By the way, what he is talking about here is not for every single person in the America or the Western world. Let us keep rolling. Shahid Bolsen has the tact, he tells it like it is, and he aren't lying about one thing. This man is dropping facts. It is up to us to pick it up or kick it to the curb. Having multiple jobs is the norm in America and England. And yet these countries are supposed to be prosperous. How can it be? Most things in the West are unnatural. If one is not careful, one can end up in the mental health avenue. Low moods, stress and anxiety on the go can become a reality. I see people popping tablets to get a bit of relief through the day. How can that be life? We live in a society of people raised and schooled to be opportunists, hustlers, to become successful. Family life is put on the back burner for success, so children are given things and raised up without bonding to parents and without boundaries. All this adds up to the opposite of stability. Very true, millions of American and British children get feeding in schools' food programs, because there is not enough food in their homes. These kids suffer greatly in summer-long school holidays. How can that be American dream? Sheer madness. The American dream arrived in the 50s and died in the 70s. The brief research I have done shows that it was possible to get a college degree, a good job, a new house, and one could even raise a family without too much worry about tomorrow. America at its core is defined by hyper-individualism and hyper-materialism. Just go read the book Iceman Inheritance, very enlightening. Let us take a listen at Shahid Bolsen. Share your thoughts in comments section. They always generate a conversation that benefits us all. I have my final thoughts at the end.
America, the land of opportunity, right? Think about this. The best and greatest country in the world, the best country that ever existed, liberty, freedom, prosperity, on and on and on. But look at you. It's the land of milk and honey, but everyone is always trying to find a side hustle. Everyone is endlessly talking about being on their grind. You know, motivational speakers are a billion-dollar industry. Life coaches, self-help books. Social media is full of inspirational quotes, so-called, on and on, for supposedly people who are living in the best country in the world. While you look like, to everyone else, you look like you're constantly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. You look like you're barely holding it together. Like you need someone to pump you up just to help you get out of bed in the morning. How great can it really be? Okay, I mean, let's do an evaluation of reality. Just for a second, you know? Let's look at the situation in America objectively. Maybe some of the elements that are usually overlooked in America, or they're only overlooked in isolation. But let's look at it as a whole. Let's look at it as an organic whole. First of all, roughly half of all of the current working age population in America today, the adult population, between 40 to 50% of the adults who are in America today, who are, you know, in the leading positions in America, whether it's in business or in government or what have you, about half of the adult population in America grew up with divorced parents, means single mothers mostly. Okay, well, we're all aware of the emotional and developmental issues that can affect kids when they're growing up in broken homes, homes without fathers, and so on. There is trauma from that, no doubt. No matter how great that mother is, no matter how great that father may be, a child without two parents who are actively involved in bringing that child up, that child has a much harder time than a child who has both parents. That's a statistical fact. Okay, so half of your adults grew up like that. They were impacted by that. Then if you look at the statistics of abuse and neglect that was reported throughout the 1980s and 1990s, somewhere between 25% and 40% of all American adults today suffered abuse while they were growing up. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional neglect, and so on. Do you understand? So you have that trauma as well in your adult population. And all of the associated psychological aftermath of that they're dealing with, that they're coping with. At least 10% of American adults today grew up in poverty and economic hardship when they were children. And now in adulthood, 25% of adult American women have been victims of rape or attempted rape. And half of all American women have experienced some form of sexual violence. A quarter of all men, American men, have suffered some form of sexual violence in the United States. Now, if you look at the other crime statistics of the past, say 4 decades, then that would leave you with 20% of all Americans who know someone who's been murdered. It's a brutal society. The people have grown up with severe and abnormal conditions in their country, all of which are deteriorative to their mental health. And now think about the fact that an adult in America today, say someone who was born in 1990, if they were born in 1990, they're 35 years old now, they likely spent 50,000 hours watching television, 40,000 hours surfing the internet, and up to 20,000 hours playing video games. That's 110,000 hours of passive media consumption, 35% of their entire life. That's more time than they've probably spent working or studying or even sleeping. It's equivalent to spending every waking moment of an entire decade glued to a screen. I mean, in fact, if you want to be accurate about it, we should just subtract the time that they probably slept. You know? Only count their waking hours. In that case, the average 35-year-old American has literally spent more than half of their life watching television, surfing the internet, or playing video games. Passive consumption of media. Roughly 55% of their lives. I mean, no wonder whenever anything even mildly interesting happens in their life, they'll say, wow, it was just like a movie. Without fail. You know? Because media is literally their frame of reference. Media. Popular media. Not actual experience. Now combine that with the real trauma issues that they have from growing up. And from the violence and the insecurity of their society where they live. They're not processing any of that. They're not processing anything that they've been through. Instead, there's just escapism, avoidance, isolation, desensitization, you know? And this, escape into false versions of reality, simplified versions of reality, and so on. The Instagram world, the virtual universe of the internet becomes their unnatural, natural habitat. The average 35-year-old American male, has spent roughly 3,000 hours watching pornography. That's equivalent to about 5 months of continuous non-stop viewing. Okay, obviously all of this combined has devastating cognitive impact. Attention spans evaporate. There's a sort of a constant state of partial attention where people are continuously distracted. They're kind of paying attention and kind of not. It erodes their critical thinking skills, their problem-solving skills. It deteriorates both their working memory and their long-term memory. It erodes their emotional regulation. It causes anxiety. It causes depression. It causes volatility. It impairs their social skills, their communication skills, their empathy, their ability to even interact with people face-to-face properly. It programs you with a kind of behavioral addiction, low impulse control, on and on. Not to mention information overload, where you're accessing far more information than you could ever process. And all this just ends up making your whole perspective of the world an incoherent jumble of random bits of data, random theories and opinions, and so on. And again, remember, all of this cognitive damage is being inflicted on people who most likely are already carrying real-life trauma that has never been dealt with from their childhood and from growing up. And okay, if you can afford it, you can go to therapy. Everybody's going to a therapist, right? Well, over 60% of therapists themselves report that they themselves have psychological and emotional disorders. Because of course they do. They come from the same society. They try to rationalize that by calling themselves wounded healers. But very often they wound more than they heal. Because there's a very significant number of therapy patients who report abuse of one form or another from their therapists. I mean, ideally, you'd be able to talk to your family. That's what normal people would do. But we already said that a lot of them, at least 40-50% of them, come from broken homes. And about 30% of all American adults report that they are estranged from their families, from their parents, or from their siblings. The average close friendship in America doesn't last more than 5 years. Forget about romantic relationships, dating relationships, that barely makes it to 2 years. Usually it's only a few months. Even most marriages don't last a decade in the United States. You're people who are adrift. It's a society that's adrift. There's no anchor, there's no port, there's no dock, there's no rudder. There's no map and there's no destination. That's your society. I mean, look, America, the land of opportunity, right? Think about this. The best and greatest country in the world, the best country that ever existed, liberty, freedom, prosperity, on and on and on. But look at you. It's the land of milk and honey, but everyone is always trying to find a side hustle. Everyone is endlessly talking about being on their grind. You know, motivational speakers are a billion-dollar industry. Life coaches, self-help books. Social media is full of inspirational quotes, so-called, on and on, for supposedly people who are living in the best country in the world. While you look like, to everyone else, you look like you're constantly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. You look like you're barely holding it together. Like you need someone to pump you up just to help you get out of bed in the morning. How great can it really be? You flood social media with that stuff. All that, you can do it. You know, you can do it affirmations, all the you will survive this posts. You're beautiful, you're important, you're special, you're a champion. All of that. You flood social media with that. You flood social media with those things. And everyone in the world sees it. You understand? Everyone in the world sees that, and it looks to them like America is staring in the bathroom mirror trying to pull themselves together to face the day. That's what it looks like. You see what I mean? It looks very sad to people outside. You know? People in countries that don't proclaim to be the greatest and most wonderful nation on earth, well, they don't have to hype themselves up just to do normal things. They don't have to hype themselves up just to function in the world. People in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, so-called, they don't need motivational speakers. They don't need life coaches. They don't need inspirational Instagram quotes just to be able to stop crying in the office parking lot and go to work. Honestly, it always looks like it's a toss-up with you whether you're going to post an inspirational, motivational quote on social media or jump off the roof. You know, to the rest of the world, your society looks like a wreck. Looks like an emotional wreck. But you see, that's because the rest of the world did not spend a third of their life glued to a screen. The average person in the global south has spent a fraction of the time that Americans have spent consuming media. They also have better relationships with their families. They have better friendships. They have better support networks. You know, they have better ways of coping with trauma. They have better ways of coping with difficulty and so on. Even though they're not fortunate enough to live in the best country in the world, you know. Bolivia's bathroom isn't framed with, sticky notes telling it what a winner it is and how it's going to crush it today. Indonesia isn't driving to work listening to Tony Robbins on their headphones. Do you know the awkward, embarrassed silence you would get in Mauritania if you tried to give a confidence-boosting pep talk to a bunch of students? I mean, the only people in the global south, the only people in the Muslim world, that this would resonate with at all are the people in those countries who are westernized. Isn't that funny? The more westernized you become, the more Americanized you become, the more you need constant affirmations and constant confidence boosting. Because westernization is alienation from normal human approaches to life. Even for Westerners. And see, I'm saying all of this to say, this is why I say that all they do is lie. All they can do is lie, without even meaning to lie. They can't be truthful because they are estranged from the truth. They're estranged from reality. They're estranged from the real world. Their cognitive health is damaged. Their cognitive functions, their thinking skills, their concept of reality. And there's always this smoldering, simmering, mental, psychological, and emotional illness that they're constantly trying to suppress and deny. They're barely holding themselves together. Wallahi. Like I said, you flood social media with all your insecurities. You flood social media with all your inadequacy, your low self-esteem continuously. All the, forced displays of bliss, all the beauty filters, all the endless cliched personal development advice. Everyone knows that you're not trying to inspire anyone but yourself. Because your life is so vacuous, your life is so purposeless, your life is so mundane compared to the fake version of life that you spent 100,000 hours absorbing since childhood. And you can't bear to compare the reality of your life with that false version of reality. So you barely are able to even walk out the door without medicating yourself in the morning. Medicating yourself either with alcohol or narcotics or prescription drugs. Or medicating yourself with social media likes for some vapid quote about living your best life. I mean, think about it. Your society came up with this thing. You tell people, fake it until you make it. Fake it. Fake being capable. Fake being qualified. Fake being successful. Fake being happy. Fake being beautiful with your beauty filters. Fake being fit. Fake being healthy. Fake being motivated. Fake being strong. Fake being wise. Fake being smart. Fake being informed. This is what you teach your people. This is what you teach your society. Why? Is it because you used to teach them that if you work hard you can make it, and everyone found out that that was a lie? So now you tell them that the key to success is to be fake? What kind of culture is this? And again, understand that you're broadcasting this pathology all across the internet to the whole world. The whole world sees it. And now everyone knows that you're faking. Everyone knows that you're frauds. See, I'm telling you, it's impossible to get anything even like the truth from these people. Because they themselves are cut off from the truth. It's not their fault. It's not necessarily because they are deliberately lying. They're deliberately dishonest. No. But they are no more capable of telling the truth than I'm capable of speaking Swahili. They can't make any sense even if they want to. The society has paralyzed them. They've been victimized. They've been traumatized. And then they were propagandized. They've been militarized, desensitized, dehumanized, and monetized. And yes, they've been neutralized, and that's a whole lot of lies. So if you're American, if you're Western generally, but especially if you're American, if you were raised in America, and you went through that 110,000 hours of programming, then you have to understand that in order for you to even start learning about reality, or to even start learning, you have to understand you're not even starting at zero. You're in a hole. You're at less than zero. Because it isn't just that you're ignorant about the world, you have been miseducated about the world. So you have to actually unlearn all of that miseducation. All of those tens of thousands of hours of programming. Hundreds of thousands, in fact, because that includes not just your media consumption, but it also includes your schooling, your so-called education too. So you have to unlearn all of that indoctrination. You have to unlearn all of that programming just to get you out of that hole, just to get you up to zero. You understand? So that then maybe you can actually start to learn about the world that you live in. You have to get to zero first. But not only have they got you in a hole, they've got you to where you don't even know how to climb out of the hole. You don't even have those skills, the climbing skills, because they taught you the most dysfunctional approach to knowledge and the most dysfunctional approach to the processing of information imaginable. It's an approach that basically prevents any sort of understanding. And I think it's calculated. See, this is where you have to understand that there's layers of gaslighting that they do. The complexity of their tactics to mislead you. It's not that straightforward. It's not just that, the gaslighting for them isn't just that they want to make you believe that you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. It's not just trying to tell you that something is other than what it is, and what you can tell it is, what you see it is. That's amateur level, telling you it's day when it's actually night. No, they go deeper than that. They'll actually have you doubting your own reasoning. They'll make you doubt not only what you're seeing, but they'll make you doubt the whole mental process that takes place in your mind that explains to you what you're seeing. They're throwing a monkey wrench in the whole machinery of your common sense. Like if it's night, okay? If it's night and they tell you that it's day, then they'll tell you, well, the sun is actually there. It didn't go away. Technically, the sun's light is still shining on the earth after all. So what does night really even mean, actually? Night means the absence of the sun, right? And the sun is never actually absent, so really there's no such thing as night, actually, if you think about it. See what I mean? This is what they do. This is how they play with words. This is how they manipulate and how they abuse normal logical sense, just so that they can make everything nonsensical. Because when everything is nonsense, then nothing means anything. There is no right or wrong. Nothing has a definition. Nothing has any meaning. Everything is arbitrary. Everything is subjective. Everything is meaningless, and that's how they want it. That's how they want you to operate in the world. I'm telling you, it's intellectual sadism. They're torturing your mind, and they've done it to you your whole life. And then at the end of that, even intelligence and even sense don't have any meaning or value, which means that anyone and everyone's opinion has equal validity and equal value, which is the same thing as devaluing knowledge, devaluing truth. Please understand me. And that's free speech, so-called. You know, free speech, the way they do it, is just a way to completely drown out reasonable, intelligent, informed, and knowledgeable voices. That's why they support free speech, because the truth is, if you want to learn, the only way to learn is to listen. Is to shut your own mouth and listen. There's no other way to do it. Nobody learns by talking. Your own voice never taught you anything. You know, they say talk is cheap. Well, in America, it's free, and they made it free for a reason. And the reason is because they want the noise. They want the noise. They've worked it out so that you can actually censor people even more effectively by letting everyone talk. Now they don't have to silence anyone anymore. They don't have to silence anyone. All you have to do is increase the volume on everyone so that then the voices that you should be listening to can't be heard. Oh, it's brilliant. It's as brilliant as it is diabolical. Now that's the way they can make sure that you never get out of the hole. You see how it works? So my message first is for the Muslims, for our Ummah, and for the people in the Global South more broadly. The decolonization of your intellect requires that you recognize that non-Muslim Westerners, that Americans, are literally incapable of telling the truth. Even if they want to. They can't do it. You're dealing with the people who are afflicted with debilitating cognitive damage, debilitating emotional disorders, crippling psychological and mental confusion and dysfunction. They'll treat a yes or no question like it's a multiple choice. They'll treat it like it's an essay question. No, you need to push all of that aside. You need to push all of that off the table. You need to hit the mute button on all of that. And as for Westerners, as for Americans, I'm telling you that you need to recognize what your society has done to you. You need to recognize that no society that cares about you would ever do that to you. And you need to realize that your society requires you to pump yourself up, hype yourself up, intravenously inject a constant flow of affirmations and motivations and constant pressure to fight and to struggle and to hustle and to compete and fake it until you make it. Well, that's not a society that wants you to succeed. That's a society that does not facilitate your success. It's a society that makes success unattainable. And then they try to make you feel like it's your fault that you're not a billionaire. They want you to feel like it's your fault and that you're a failure because their system is rigged. They want you to think that it's all your fault that 10% of that population controls 70% of the wealth. And make you think it's your fault that you didn't try hard enough to get into that 10%. As if the 90% of the population are the blameworthy ones. And not the inhumanly greedy 10%. And you need to realize that your society has wronged you. They've wronged you very badly. You need to realize that you're not safe, you're not healthy, you're not informed, and you're not happy. And they have deprived you of even the ability to ever become any of those things. All you can do, all you are allowed to do, and all that is actually required of you to do is to fake it. No matter how bad it is, no matter how bad it gets, you're expected to just slap on a big white tooth smiling filter and pretend. They want you to perform America. That's your obligation. Forget about your own happiness. You have to perform America for the world. Never mind that that whole audience is mortified by this performance, and they've already left the building.
On the flip side, I think it is possible to believe that all things have not been taught to us, but to say that only your way is correct is far-fetched. There are certain things that I agree with him on, which were that mobile phones and information is constantly being downloaded into our brains, and it's hard to make human connections when so much is going on around us all the time. Indeed, we have been sold that America is the land of milk and honey, and that our therapists also need therapists. But I don't think it is a uniquely American thing. I think we are all having to cope in a world that doesn't give a damn about humankind, and more so in the West than anywhere else. I just don't want there to be any slight on the things that are great about living in America or the West. Yes, America has its bad things, and I could go down the list, but it also has a lot of great things. I feel that it's also how you choose to look at them. Also, in believing that God created us to be where in the world we are and knowing who could handle what. Not that these things should ever get a pass, but there are falsehoods everywhere on the globe, and to say that because you're born in the West with Western ideas, that your culture is somehow inherently bad, can be said for all humans no matter where you stay. Greed is the same no matter where you live. No education is just as bad here in the States as it could be for people overseas. So, I do get what he is telling us, but I think it is a universal problem and not a root causation that only happens to Western societies. Do I feel like it could be prevalent over here? Yes, but if it happens anywhere, it's just as bad. So, I agree and somewhat disagree, but nor do I or we have the power to change that because we all know what we have been taught, and every lesson hasn't been wrote in a book. This is something everyone must go through in order to come to an understanding. What are your thoughts on this, please?